So it is very easy to make fun of Tom Telesco and the moves that he either hasn't made or just the bad moves that he's made. But I want to try to take a little bit more positive today and talk about what I think he does well. Some things are very obvious, but some things maybe not so much. Like I wanted to find some different things that I think he does well. Maybe other GMs do it. I'm not quite so sure, but just some things that I admire about him that he does that stand out to me over his entire tenure. And the first one, which may not be as obvious, I like that he is okay with finding talent in different leagues, different settings. He's not just going to turn up his nose at, some of the talent that's out there, whether that be someone like Dontrell Inman, who actually got a lot of production out of him, right? But then he was also able to trade him for a pick. And then later on down the line, Inman came back and worked with Philip Rivers, had a couple of good games there before he got hurt. But hey, Canadian Football League, I'll take a look at these guys. Same thing with Ty Long, who's going to be the starting punter this season, and has been their punter. And then, of course, you have Cordero Law, who I don't remember much about. I do remember he was from the CFL. Might have been one of those guys that was competing with Larry English and Torek Williams for like an edge rusher kind of role. I don't remember much about him. But again, you take a shot on these guys, and what's the worst that happens? You just cut them. I think the benefit is that you either at least get a depth piece, or you get a starter like Dontrell Inman, like Ty Long, and then you look at here like a Donald Parham, and I didn't include Storm Norton on this screen, but you have guys from the XFL now. Hey, let's look at this avenue. What do they have to offer? Instead of turning up your nose at some of these guys because they weren't in the NFL for an extended period of time. They're not your traditional free agents. Doesn't mean you can't look at them. And instead, Donald Parham is going to be tight end 2, could be tight end 1 next year. Storm Norton could be the team's swing tackle this year, probably is going to make the team. So you have a potential starter, rotational guy, and another depth signing with Storm Norton, and you're building a team all right there. I'm not saying they're all great players, but again, you could do worse. And then recently this past offseason, they signed Austin Prohl from, I can't recall which league, but he could realistically beat out KJ Hill, maybe Joe Reed, to make the team as a wide receiver. Has a lot of shiftiness to him. And again, just look, if it doesn't work out, you cut him, you move on. But if it does, nice depth signing. And who knows what you can get from that. So I like that he has never just turned up his nose at talent from different places. The next one is hit or miss. And there's a lot more to this than what I'm showing here. And pardon me for having poor graphics. I'm not quite here to have a great media display. I'm just here to discuss Tom Telesco in football. So what I've liked about Tom Telesco is in the first year of head coaches, for these head coaches, he has consistently given them good offensive talent, at least projected, whether that be through the draft or through free agency. So you have with Mike McCoy, draft DJ Fluker, sign King Dunlap, right? DJ Fluker, first round pick, the first pick that Tom Telesco ever made. I think King Dunlap, while he wasn't like a big signing, he was brought in to compete. And I believe pretty quickly he beat out Jared Gaither because Jared Gaither was a fat, lazy, no good guy once he got his contract. But the investment was there. No surprise, Mike McCoy and the Chargers made the playoffs that first season and, improved from the previous season. Anthony Lynn, kind of same thing. Russell Okung, left tackle, Forrest Lamp, Dan Feeney, and Sam Tevy in the draft in Anthony Lynn's first year as a head coach. They did not make the postseason, but they did improve from the previous year, and then they made the postseason the next year. Not quite because of Forrest Lamp, but certainly Russell Okung was a big, big part of that. And I think that investment really, really helped. Again, you see kind of a resurgence in Philip Rivers as well. And then finally, this offseason, of course, I think more than any year, he's really given Staley and his quarterback Herbert more offensive line help, whether that be drafting Rashawn Slater in the first round, signing Corey Linsley, signing Ode Abushi, signing Matt Filer, drafting Brendan Hymus, and all that. And I just think that is going to propel Staley and Herbert to success as early as this year, if not next season, getting to the postseason, maybe not the Super Bowl, but I think that they will be a better team because of this investment. Now, the issue, of course, becomes how these moves have panned out, right? DJ Fluker didn't exactly pan out, although I believe he's still in the league as a guard. King Dunlap did pan out. Unfortunately, he had too many concussions and he just had to end up retiring. But, he was a good left tackle, the best left tackle they had until Okung. And some would argue Dunlap was better. And of course, Okung was, I believe, a Pro Bowl tackle for them. Lamp didn't quite work out, obviously. Feeney was okay. Tevi was, but they got the good starts out of them. They got a couple of good starts out of them, but they did get many starts out of them. And, that's something. And so I hope this next crop of offensive linemen that Telesco has acquired will pan out a little bit better. I think they will. I think Lindsley is kind of bust proof outside of injuries. Rashawn Slater, I have full confidence in. And I think at least one of Filer or Abuji are going to do well and be on the team next season. We'll see if both make it. The odds based on history is one of them probably isn't. But I do expect them to play at least pretty well. So overall, I like that Telesco looks at his first year head coaches and goes, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I invest significant capital, either through the draft or the cap, into this offensive line to ensure that you can implement your offense for better or worse. Another one, and listen, for all the draft mistakes that Tom Telesco makes, I do think he's a pretty good hitter, a good batter, if you will, in the first round. And some would argue that, these players just come to him, and I'll get to that in a bit. But, comparing that to, so I have here, I have the Steelers. Down here, I have the Broncos. And the bottom left, I have the Patriots. I'm not saying that these are all the best organizations, but, the Steelers are a good organization. The Broncos are an AFC West rival. And the Patriots have been one of the most dominant teams in the league for almost my entire life. And, I would argue that Tom Telesco does draft better players than those guys. Now, of course, the difference being, if you look at the second column of numbers, he drafts a little bit earlier, right? The Steelers are consistently drafting later in the draft. Same thing with the Patriots. Same thing kind of with the Broncos during those Manning years. So, yeah, you have access to better players. You're probably going to take a better player, but you do have to draft these guys. And, while Fluker didn't work out, he's still in the league and he's an okay guard. And he was all right with the Chargers for a year. And it never really went further than just okay. Jason Verrett I thought was going to be a better corner than Casey Hayward. The talent was certainly there. Everyone knows that Jason Verrett is a great corner. He just couldn't stay healthy, but you got to take a swing on a guy like that because there are very few guys who can shut down, Golden Tate, Jason Verrett, Alshon Jeffrey in different weeks of a season. That doesn't happen very much. Jalen Ramsey was what? 6th overall pick. You get Verrett at 25. Verrett is a guy who can kind of be like Ramsey, play anywhere, cover anybody. Good pick. Gordon, not good to take a running back, but I think that, as far as running backs go, I mean, Gordon's okay. I kind of feel bad for Gordon because he was stuck with, that awful Mike McCoy offense in 15 and 16. And then his jump in production was with Anthony Lynn. That's as good as it got for him. Not so great with Denver, but anyway. Joey Bosa, obviously one of the best defensive players, probably the second best defensive player in the league, in my opinion, behind Aaron Donald. I know Jalen Ramsey should probably take that role or that spot, but Bosa's, I think, a more valuable spot, but that's up for debate. Mike Williams never quite panned out, but, he's got some time. We'll see how that goes this season. He's, by all accounts, he's supposed to have a breakout season, right? Maybe it just was the coaching staff, and now he's in the right spot to break out. Maybe we're going to find out that this was a fantastic pick. Derwin James, no question that the talent was there. Jerry Tillery, we'll see. But again, I'm hopeful for the coaching staff to get the most out of them. Justin Herbert, obviously, that was a very good pick. Kenneth Murray, 100 tackles in his first season, low missed tackle rate, and a guy that Brandon Staley is really excited about. I'm excited for him. And then Rashawn Slater, considered by maybe half the draft analysts to be the better offensive tackle in the draft. So, overall, while Telesco does have issues with some of his other picks, I do think in the first round he is pretty solid. And some would say, yeah, they just fall to him. These players just fall to him. But it doesn't technically every draft, everybody falls to the unless you trade up for a guy, doesn't every player fall to every team? I don't know. To me, saying that Bosa was an easy pick, I think is underselling what the Chargers had to do, especially because absolutely nobody else was calling this pick. Derwin James fell to him. We still got to make that pick. 16 other teams didn't make that pick. You have to pull the trigger, go with your gut. Why is nobody else taking him? I don't know, but we're going to take him because I believe in it. Herbert, QB3. So, I think he does hit in the first round. I do think he deserves a lot of credit for that. Another one, which I think everyone pretty much knows, he takes care of his own guys. And, the notion that the Chargers are cheap largely stems from two things. One, a bunch of salty haters that don't know anything about football, and the other being that it doesn't look like the Chargers spend a lot of money. And in terms of outside free agents, not really. Like they're not those big spenders. What did Rayshon Jenkins get from the Jaguars? Like $48 million or something like that. The Chargers aren't going to go out and just overspend like crazy for guys like that. No offense to Jenkins, but they do is they take care of their own, right? Keenan Allen here, if you look at his earnings and how long he's probably going to be on the team, and I expect him to play out his contract, he's going to end up from a third round pick to making $133 million in his career. And that's before his next contract, which he could legitimately have another contract extension by, 2023, 2024. He could get that extension. So, always taking care of his guys, whether it be Joey Bosa, whether it be Keenan Allen, whether it be Casey Hayward, a guy that he brought in and then extended, Melvin Ingram, he tends to take care of his guys. That was different this past season, this past off season, right? Letting a lot of guys go like Hunter Henry, Sam Tevi, Forrest Lamp, Dan Feeney, yada, yada. Yeah, of course, Melvin Ingram now. But that's partially because of the regime change as well and the coaching staff change and what they want to do. But overall, he has taken care of his guys. And, not only is that good for the team, but it's also good for like the fans to see. I know entering my fandom, if you will, as a Chargers fan, a lot of the stories were wrapped around that, the Chargers always let their best players go. And to some extent that was true. They did like a Drew Brees go. But I think Telesco has really taken it to heart to make sure that if they're good, that he takes care of his guys, and even if they're not so good, sometimes he does still try to take care of them because he's something invested in them, and they've worked for the team, they've been around each other, and I think that relationship is key. Sometimes it's to a fault with like maybe a Brandon Mebane, for example, right, holding on to him for a very long time, but I do admire that as a fan, even just as a fan, that he does take care of the players that I love and support. And at the same time, he takes care of the contracts in general. And I understand that that's not really like he doesn't do the contracts, but he does find the players and make things work. And he oversees that the cap is pretty much taken care of overall. And as far as dead money goes, I mean, look at some of the, some of these are quarterback driven, right? The Eagles had to take it on because of Carson Wentz. The Lions take it on because of Goff, I believe. But compared to other teams, I mean, the Chargers have $2 million in dead cap. Let's find, some good teams out there. Rams, 39 million in dead cap. Saints, 33 million in dead cap. If I'm not mistaken, the Chargers have like are projected to have $50 million in cap space next year. And I believe the Rams are like over, $10 million in cap space. So, for better or worse, the Chargers are always in a healthy position to shape up their roster as needed, which we just saw this past offseason, right? Part of that is because of a rookie quarterback, which again is another smart move from Telesco. The Chargers now next year, should they be better this season, can now go, okay, here's what we need. Let's year 2 with Staley and year 3 with Herbert, year 2 with Herbert as like the official starter for a full season. Let's go all in. Now we know what our weaknesses are and what we need to fix. Here's a bunch of money. I've got tons of picks. Let's rock. Whereas, some other teams got to get a little bit more creative and if not cut a lot of players. I mean, the Packers had to pick between Corey Linsley and Aaron Jones and had to make some work there. They ended up, I think, picking the wrong guy, in my opinion, and stuck with Aaron Jones. Well, I kind of get that. But, Corey Linsley had to walk. So what does Telesco do? Thank you. I'll take him. I have the money. I have the connections. Let's do it. So in general, I know this isn't everything. So please in the comments, let me know if there's something else. But I love that he looked for players and he's okay looking at players at different spots. I love that he does try to give his first year head coaches some success by giving them offensive line help at either high draft spots or with a lot of cap. I like that in general. I think he hits pretty well in the first round, better than most. The rounds after that may be an issue, but as far as the first round goes, I do think he hits pretty well there. He's probably found, in my opinion, between Bosa and Herbert, two of the most important players and best players at their positions for the next few years. Herbert probably longer than Bosa at this point, considering Bosa's injuries. But, if Bosa is one of the 5 best defensive players in football, Herbert could be a top 5 quarterback in football. To find an edge player and a quarterback in the first round who are that good, you got to give it up, right? Of course, taking care of your players, which we know that he's taking care of Joey Bosa. He will take care of Derwin James. And there's no question he's going to take care of Justin Herbert when the time comes, right? We're not worried about that. And that's nice, right? We're not worried about him going somewhere else. No, Herbert is a Charger for life, barring injuries or something crazy happening. And then finally, being ready to take these moves, take the next step in another year because the dead money is so low. The cap is always so healthy. So that's it for me. Those are 6 things that I thought that Tom Telesco does, pretty well. Maybe, I don't know if it's better than most. Some things like the dead money, you could obviously tell it's better than most. Some things like the first round picks, I can't look at every team. So if there's something I missed, let me know. As always, please leave a comment. I appreciate you guys just being here and following along. And as always, bolt up.